Okay, so ready to dive in. Today, we're tackling something pretty huge, I think. Something a lot of us think about, right? How do we find that real direction in life? Like, what are we really doing here? And how do we feel good about it, like deeply satisfied? And maybe what can we learn from those people who just seem to have figured it out?
Yeah, they always make it look so easy.
Right, like they just know what they're supposed to be doing and they're crushing it.
Definitely. And today, we're getting some clues, hopefully. We're going deep into a conversation between Jordan Peterson and Tony Robbins. Specifically, episode 517 from Peterson's YouTube channel. Our mission. Well, we're sifting through their discussion on, like finding your path in life, that sense of deep satisfaction, and how to get past those roadblocks, like when you're feeling down or just totally unmotivated.
Yep, we've all been there. And all our insights today are pulled directly from the transcript of their conversation.
And you know what really caught my eye right off the bat? Tony Robbins, who you usually think of as this live, in-person kind of guy, he actually put his methods to the test, like scientifically.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like full-on research study. The episode starts with Jordan Peterson reading from the abstract of this paper. It's called Effects of an Immersive Psychosocial Training Program on Depression and Well-Being, a Randomized Clinical Trial. Pretty serious stuff. And it just struck me that someone like Robbins, someone who's already so successful, would even bother with this level of scientific validation.
That says a lot, doesn't it? It's like he's not just relying on anecdotes, he's looking for hard data.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And those initial findings, as Peterson reads them, let's just say they grabbed my attention.
Okay, lay it on me. What did they find?
So this study looked at Robbie's 6-day intensive program, plus some short daily exercises participants did after the program. And they compared that group to another group who were just doing gratitude journaling. And get this, the abstract reports an 83% reduction in depression severity for the program group. But wait, it gets even wilder. By week 6, almost everyone in the program was considered non-depressed.
No way. That's huge. Like way beyond just feeling a bit better.
Right. So huge difference from the other group. And I mean, come on, that just screams that there's something powerful going on with this whole immersive experience.
Absolutely. My first thought was like, okay, what's the secret sauce in this program that can create such a fast and massive change?
Yeah, spill the beans, Tony.
And, luckily, Robbins gets into that. He talks about spending decades, like almost 50 years, observing patterns in how people behave. And from that, he developed these specific processes to help people. He calls it finding your true north.
Oh, I like that.
Right. And then it's about realigning your values to match that true north. So it's not just about surface level changes, but about shifting what's driving you at a core level.
So moving towards what you actually want now, not what you used to want or what you think you should want.
Exactly. And he actually contrasts this with being stuck in those old patterns.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Discovering your own internal compass and aligning your actions with it, I mean, that's got to be crucial.
Totally. And Robbins has this really important point he brings up, which is that where we focus our attention really shapes our reality. And then he makes this key distinction. Push motivation versus pull motivation.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Break that down for me.
So push motivation is like willpower, right? It often feels like you're forcing yourself, like a constant struggle.
Ugh, yeah, I know that feeling. It's exhausting.
Totally. But then there's pull motivation. It's about being drawn toward something you deeply care about, something he calls a magnificent obsession. And, honestly, when he was talking about it, I felt like he had one. It was that palpable.
Interesting.
And this whole idea of being pulled by your values, by what genuinely excites you, that's at the heart of his 6-day Date with Destiny program. He actually mentions this Netflix documentary, Tony Robbins, I Am Not Your Guru. He thinks it gives a pretty accurate picture of this really intense experience.
Oh, I might have to check that out.
Yeah, it's supposed to be pretty wild. And really important, the doc includes follow-ups with people years later.
Oh, wow. So you can actually see if these changes stick over the long term.
Exactly. And that long-term focus really explains how this whole research study even came about. Robbins talks about how these professors from Stanford University, they were apparently blown away by the changes they saw in people who had gone through his program.
Wow, impressive.
Right, and these professors, they actually reached out to him, to Robbins, and proposed doing a proper research study.
That's a real testament to the impact they were seeing.
For sure. And the timing of this study is important too, right? It was smack dab in the middle of COVID. And as Robbins points out, rates of depression, suicide, overdoses, they were all sky high.
A really tough time for a lot of people.
Absolutely. And Robbins actually brings up some pretty sobering stats about more traditional ways of treating depression. Like a lot of studies suggest that a good chunk of people just don't see much improvement, and the average improvement is around 50%. And his goal, he straight up says he wanted to beat the results of a Johns Hopkins study using psilocybin and cognitive therapy. That study had a 54% remission rate after 6 weeks. So Robbins set the bar pretty high.
High bar indeed. But guess what? The results of his program in this clinical trial, they were, well, Peterson used the word remarkable, and I think that's spot on.
Yep.
A 93% remission rate in the program group after 6 weeks. Even Robbins was surprised.
Seriously, that's incredible.
And think about this. 19% of the folks who started the study reported having suicidal thoughts. None of them had those thoughts after those 6 weeks.
That's powerful. And the good news just keeps coming with the follow-up data, right? A year later, the program group showed a 52% increase in positive emotions and a 71% decrease in negative emotions. They also did another study, a bigger one, with 1,500 people. This time, the focus was on engagement, both at work and in personal life. And this study found that the program basically reversed the disengagement that had built up over 4 years of isolation after COVID. And maybe even better, engagement kept going up over the next year.
Wow, that's just amazing. It's way beyond just feeling better. That's like a complete turnaround.
Right. And when you think about the impact on society, on people's productivity, it's huge. Peterson then takes the conversation in a really interesting direction. He starts talking about how we actually see the world through the lens of our goals.
I love that idea. Like, our goals shape our perception.
Exactly. And that leads to this fascinating discussion about what they call the biochemistry of engagement.
Okay, now we're talking.
So, Robbins describes being monitored during his life events, and let me tell you, the data is intense. The guy burns an average of 11,300 calories a day and jumps something like 1,000 times.
Whoa, that's a serious workout.
Right. And through this monitoring, they identified what they call a championship biochemistry, which they say is similar to what's seen in top athletes like Tom Brady at their peak performance. It involves a surge in testosterone and a major drop in cortisol, leading to crazy focus and memory.
Now that's interesting. Like, if you can hack your biochemistry, you can unlock that next level of performance.
Exactly. And Robbins has this theory, right? He thinks that him physically embodying this high energy focused state, plus the way our brains are wired with these things called mirror neurons, well, he thinks those things contribute to the lasting impact of his programs.
Mirror neurons. Remind me what those are again.
Sure. Think of them like the monkey see, monkey do part of our brains. When you see someone doing something, these neurons fire as if you were doing it yourself. So Robbins' theory is that when the audience sees him all fired up and focused, their mirror neurons fire, and they get a taste of that state themselves.
Oh, that makes sense. It's like experiencing it vicariously.
Right. And it might even make those states more accessible for them later. He's adamant that emotion is key to forming lasting memories. Like, you really got to feel it to remember it.
Totally. Think about the memories that stick with you the most. They're usually tied to strong emotions.
Exactly. And this is where Peterson, being the brilliant mind that he is, makes this totally unexpected connection to bees.
Bees. What do bees have to do with this?
I know, right? It's awesome. He talks about how bees communicate the location and quality of good nectar sources through this waggle dance, and the more energy they put into the dance, the better the nectar.
So their effort signals the value of the resource.
Exactly. And Peterson's saying it's like Robbins on stage. It's a super clever analogy. It makes you think, right? In your own life, what's your energy level saying about what's important to you?
I love that. So like a whole new way to think about passion.
Right. The conversation then circles back to that pull motivation idea. Peterson frames it in terms of a quest, like that positive emotion fueled by dopamine you feel when you're moving towards a goal that you deeply value.
Oh, I know that feeling. Like when you're making progress on a project you're excited about, you're in the flow.
Exactly. And Robbins is quick to clarify that he's not trying to be some guru figure. Like, the goal, the treasure you're searching for, it's got to be yours. This is about creating a life that feels genuinely authentic to you.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So much self-help stuff feels kind of generic.
Yeah, one size fits all. And that's definitely not Robbins' message.
No, it's about finding what's unique to you.
And Robbins brings up this awesome quote from Nietzsche. If you have a why, you can bear anyhow. He's saying that having strong reasons, that deep sense of purpose, has to come before you figure out the how-to.
That makes sense. Like the why fuels the how.
Exactly. And he argues that people don't ultimately want stuff like money for the sake of it. They want the feelings and the impact that those things can create, like security, freedom, the ability to make a
It's
difference.
about the deeper needs those things fulfill.
Right. And then Peterson brings in his future authoring exercise, which is basically imagining your ideal life 5 years in the future. And you really dig into why that vision is so compelling that it would keep you going even on tough days.
Oh, that's cool exercise.
It is. And Robbins is totally on board with it. He emphasizes how important it is to have those really powerful reasons. And he says we need to look beyond the surface desires to discover what truly motivates us at a deeper level.
So it's not just about wanting a bigger house. It's about what that bigger house represents for you.
Exactly. It could be about wanting more space for your family, or wanting to host more gatherings, or wanting to feel a sense of accomplishment.
Right. It's about the underlying values and emotions.
And Peterson then offers a really interesting framework for thinking about this. He talks about aim, pathway, and emotion. He says that we literally see the world through the filter of our aims.
Wow. So our goals shape how we perceive reality.
That's the idea. And once you have a clear aim, a path to get there starts to emerge. And this whole framework impacts your emotions. Obstacles create negative emotions. Progress creates positive ones.
Okay, that makes sense. But what if you don't have a clear aim?
Well, Peterson's point is that without a clear aim, it's tough to consistently feel positive emotions. It's like if you don't know where you're going, every path feels kind of pointless.
Ah, so you're less likely to experience those wins that generate positive feelings.
Exactly. And Robbins adds to this by saying that anyone can deal with a difficult now if they have a compelling vision for the future.
I love that. It's like having a light at the end of the tunnel.
Right. He gives examples of national visions, like Kennedy's goal of putting a man on the moon or Reagan's city on a hill idea. He's saying those visions had this unifying, energizing power. And he thinks there's this hunger for change and a compelling future right now, especially in areas like health, where he believes some important truths were suppressed during the pandemic.
That's really interesting. He's tapping into this societal need for a positive vision, for something to strive for.
Totally. And he then shifts gears a bit and starts talking about the connection between your energy levels and your state of consciousness.
Energy and consciousness, how are those connected?
Well, he argues that raising your energy directly elevates your awareness and engagement with the world. And he revisits dopamine, pointing out that it has this dual role. It gives you that hit of enthusiasm and reward when you're making progress, but it also strengthens the neural pathways that led to those positive outcomes. Like your brain is learning and reinforcing the behaviors that move you towards your goals.
So it's not just about feeling good, it's about wiring your brain for success.
Exactly. And he even uses this analogy of learning to drive a stick shift. At first, it's all conscious effort, but eventually it becomes automatic. He's saying that's how skills and even character traits can become deeply ingrained.
Ah, so it's about repetition and positive reinforcement. Makes sense.
Right. But he doesn't stop there. He emphasizes that competency and execution are just as important as hope and excitement. Like, you need the skills and the consistent effort to actually achieve what you're aiming for.
Right. Having a vision is great, but you got to put in the work.
Absolutely. He's big on the idea that success leaves clues. By studying people who have already achieved what you want, you can fast track your own progress.
That's a great point. It's like learning from the best. Why reinvent the wheel?
Right. And he even makes this distinction between motivation, which he sees as temporary, and what he calls drive, which is more like this unstoppable inner force.
Okay, I'm curious. What's the difference between motivation and drive?
Well, motivation is often fleeting. It comes and goes. But drive is deeper. It's about tapping into those really powerful underlying reasons behind your goals.
So motivation is like a quick burst of energy, while drive is more like a steady, sustained force.
That's a good way to put it. And Robbins says that one of the biggest things that holds us back from that deeper drive is inner conflict.
Yeah, we all have those internal battles going on.
Right. And Robbins says his events are designed to help people re-engineer their values so that everything is aligned, leading to a clearer sense of purpose.
So it's about getting rid of those conflicting desires that are pulling you in different directions.
Exactly. It's like when your inner values are in conflict, it can feel like you're fighting yourself. And then Peterson throws in this really thought-provoking perspective. He starts comparing Robbins' approach to these ancient biblical narratives of calling.
Whoa, interesting connection. How so?
He talks about how in biblical stories, the divine often shows up as a sort of inner prompting, like the spirit of calling and adventure, as with Abraham, who is called to leave his homeland, or as the voice of conscience, guiding ethical choices.
So it's like this inner voice calling you to a higher purpose.
Exactly. And Peterson points out that this call to adventure, stepping outside your comfort zone, is often connected to really positive outcomes in these stories, like becoming a blessing to others, achieving lasting fame, having an impact that spans
It's
generations.
about leaving a legacy.
Right. And Peterson suggests that this ultimate goal of contributing to something bigger than yourself, it actually unifies all your smaller, more immediate aims.
So your big why gives meaning to all the little hows.
Right. And then Robbins jumps in with his own take on this. He says he believes that life itself, or God, supports what supports more life.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Right. And he says that when we focus on serving something greater than ourselves, we move beyond our self-absorption, which is often the root of anxiety and fear. He even goes so far as to say that misery comes from focusing too much on our own little world.
I can definitely see that. When you're stuck in your own head, it's easy to get lost in worry and negativity.
Exactly. And he then outlines this progression he sees in personal mastery. It starts with intellectual understanding, then moves to emotional understanding, and finally to physical mastery.
Okay, break those down for me.
So intellectual understanding is just grasping a concept in your head. Emotional understanding is actually feeling the consequences of your actions. And then physical mastery is when those desired behaviors are so ingrained in your nervous system, it's like second nature.
Ah, so it's like learning to ride a bike. At first, you're wobbly and unsure, but then it just becomes effortless.
Right. But he's quick to point out that it takes consistent practice and the positive reinforcement of those good emotions to get there.
It's not just about knowing, it's about doing.
Right. Then he brings up this really fascinating concept called priming. He talks about how external cues can actually influence our thoughts and behavior, often without us even realizing it.
Rhyming, give me an example.
Sure. He mentions studies where holding a hot or cold beverage can actually shift people's judgments, or how exposure to the Apple logo can boost creativity.
Wow, that's crazy. So our surroundings are subtly shaping our minds.
That's the idea. And Robbins emphasizes the importance of consciously priming yourself, of creating an environment and directing your attention in ways that set you up for success. He even draws a parallel to religious practices like rituals and prayers. He's saying they're a form of priming too.
Interesting, it's like setting an intention.
Right. Then he gives us this peek behind the curtain and describes his own pre-stage ritual. You know, how he prepares for those massive live events.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me everything.
Well, he's got this whole routine. It's about physical preparation, like making sure he has the energy to be on stage for hours. But it's also about mental connection with the audience. He visualizes them, focuses on their needs, and he cultivates this deep sense of gratitude for the opportunity to serve them. He views each event as a quest, a question he's trying to answer for the people in the room. And he talks about reading the room by focusing on individual faces, trusting his intuition to connect with specific people.
That's incredible. He's so intentional about every aspect of the experience.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. And when they talk about public speaking, Robbins shares his perspective on how he dealt with fear.
Because I think that's a big one for a lot of people. Speaking in front of a crowd can be terrifying.
Totally. But he says he wasn't really afraid at first, and he thinks it's because he was so focused on serving the audience and he genuinely believed in what he had to offer. He calls it uptime, being totally present and focused on the needs of others instead of being stuck in your own head.
That makes a lot of sense. If you're truly focused outward, you don't have as much mental space for fear and self-doubt.
Exactly. And then he stresses the importance of physical preparation, what he calls physiology first, for being able to sustain that high energy for extended periods.
So taking care of your body is foundational to everything else.
Right. He talks about being super clear on his desired outcomes, both for the day and for each segment of his events. And connecting with the audience means really thinking about their needs, which he gathers through those detailed questionnaires, especially for his Date with Destiny program.
So he's doing his homework, getting to know his audience before he even steps on stage.
Oh, absolutely. And he says he actively looks for patterns in the audience, and he tries to identify the people who seem to be influencers, those who others are looking to.
That's fascinating. It's like he's mapping the social dynamics of the group.
Right, he's reading the room on a whole other level.
Yeah.
And he also believes that entertainment is crucial. Things like laughter, tears, movement. He sees that as a way to build trust and create an emotional opening.
It's like breaking down barriers so that people are more receptive to what he has to say.
Exactly. And he even points to how much he sweats on stage, how physically exhausted he gets. He sees that as a sign of his commitment, and he thinks it actually builds trust with the audience.
It's like he's saying, I'm putting in the effort. I'm here with you.
Totally. And he uses all sorts of interactive exercises, like having people mirror each other's body language with strangers to create an unconscious sense of connection.
Ah, so it's about creating a shared experience, both physically and emotionally.
Exactly. And he adapts his communication style, using visual, auditory, and kinesthetic language to match the cues he's getting from the audience. It's really dynamic and responsive.
So he's not just delivering a canned presentation, he's tailoring it to the people in the room.
He is. But of course, all this energy and connection, it has to lead to tangible results. And Robbins emphasizes the importance of having a clear strategy and learning from those who've already achieved success.
Right, you need a roadmap and a mentor, so to speak.
Exactly. He talks about how he studies high achievers in all sorts of fields, finance, health, to figure out what they have in common, the principles that drive their success. And then he teaches those
It's
principles.
about finding what works and sharing it with others.
Exactly. And then he dives into some fascinating insights about finances. He talks about the power of compounding, how investing early makes a huge difference.
Yeah, time is your friend when it comes to investing.
Big time. And he talks about investment strategies that the super wealthy use, things like private equity and this idea of uncorrelated investments. He references Ray Dalio's holy grail of investing, which is all about finding investments that do well regardless of how other markets are performing. He points out that historically, private equity has outperformed the stock market, and he talks about how regulations are changing, making those kinds of investments more accessible to everyday people.
That's really interesting. It's like he's democratizing access to financial knowledge.
He is, and he even shares a personal story about how he discovered a unique opportunity in private equity.
So he's not just talking the talk, he's walking the walk.
Exactly. Then he shifts gears and talks about his annual online event, the Time to Rise Summit.
Oh, I've heard of that. Tell me more.
It's a free, immersive experience designed to help people increase their energy, improve their relationships and careers, and create a clear plan for the year. It's happening from January 30th to February 1st. And he says it came about because of COVID. They had to move everything online, but then it ended up reaching millions of people around the world.
So it was a blessing in disguise.
Right. And he stresses how important it is to actively participate, not just passively watch. There are online assignments and activities. And he tells this incredibly inspiring story about a guy who weighed 700 pounds and had been bedridden for 6 years. This guy's life was totally transformed by the online summit.
Wow, talk about impact.
Right. And to wrap it all up, Robbins connects his approach to the classic hero's journey.
That's a powerful framework.
He outlines this clear path. Identify your deepest desire, confront what's holding you back, create a massive action plan, do the hard work, establish daily practices like that priming exercise we talked about, which you can find at tonyrobbins.com/curation, priming, then measure your progress and celebrate your wins before starting the cycle all over again.
So it's a continuous journey of growth and transformation.
It is. So as we wrap up this deep dive into this amazing conversation between Jordan Peterson and Tony Robbins, a few key things really jump out.
Yeah, there was so many nuggets of wisdom in there.
Like that powerful connection between having a clear aim in life and fueling it with deep, compelling reasons. We saw how important it is to translate that drive into action and how understanding human motivation, even down to our biochemistry, can be so helpful. And the importance of not just understanding things intellectually, but really experiencing them emotionally. And that these immersive experiences can be incredibly transformative.
Right. It's not just about knowing, it's about feeling and doing.
And Robbins' emphasis on service, gratitude, and continuous learning, those are themes that really resonate. And Peterson's analogy with the bee dance and his structural breakdown of aim and emotion, those are powerful insights into what drives us as humans.
It's like getting a glimpse into the operating system of the human mind.
It is. So for all of you listening, we want to leave you with this question. Think about the difference between feeling like you have to do something and feeling genuinely pulled to do it. That pull motivation versus push. What truly moves you forward in your life? Are you relying on willpower, or are you connected to that magnificent obsession, something that draws you in? Maybe exploring that difference is the first step in your own deep dive into a more fulfilling future.
That's a great question to ponder. It's about figuring out what lights your fire.
And for those of you who are intrigued by Tony Robbins' approach, his Time to Rise Summit is coming up soon, January 30th to February 1st. It's totally free, and you can register at timesummit.com. We'll put the link in the show notes too. And don't forget about that priming exercise. You can find that at tonyrobbins.com/priming. We encourage you to check out these resources and think about how these insights can be applied to your own life and your goals. Thanks for joining us.